අලුතෙන් SLT Mobitel Home 4G LTE connection ගන්නායට වටිනා tab computer සහ data දීමනා. අලුතෙන් SLT Mobitel Home 4G LTE connection ගන්නායට වටිනා tab computer සහ data දීමනා. රින් වෙළඳපොලේ අඩුම මිලකට රුපියල් 199යි.
Tonight, starting over, the Justice Minister says going back to the drawing board is the right move.
And if those alternatives are not working, we must go back to the drawing board. I think it cannot go worse and worse. It should go only upwards. That's the belief, hope I have.
Not needed. The central bank does away with its remittance and export conversion incentive scheme due to higher rupee returns. Double trouble. Consumers hit with a second milk price hike within 4 months as importers decry dollar dearth. Not so fast. The WHO warns that the pandemic is far from over as China faces a new COVID resurgence.
We are seeing actually an increase in cases this week, and sadly we're still seeing between 60,000 70,000 deaths. So we are definitely in the middle of the pandemic.
All this and much more coming up on First at 9 this Saturday, the 19th of March 2022.
Nelly මතකෙන් ගිලිහුණු black shiny කෙස් කලඹක රහස sunset black shine සමගින්.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
And a warm welcome, bringing you news from across Sri Lanka and around the world tonight. I'm Indivari Amwatha. With milk powder importers experiencing continued difficulties with the surging US dollar exchange rate and a dearth of foreign exchange as well, a price hike of 250 rupees was requested from the government today. Accordingly, the green light was given for the price hike this evening, with the new price of a 400-gram pack of milk powder now set at 790 rupees. With prices of other essentials also skyrocketing, this is a major blow to households struggling to cope with economic pressures.
According to the Central Bank of Sri Lanka's website, the rupee buying rate as of yesterday was being quoted at 264 rupees and 67 cents, while the selling rate has been quoted at 275 rupees. However, selling rates at private banks have been hovering around the 280 rupee rate. For importers, the task of finding a sufficient supply of US dollars to pay for their goods has been an uphill task. However, to add to the shortage of dollars, they are also facing liquidity issues with rising costs. The only option left to them is to raise prices. However, the ripple effect on consumers is one that is hard to ignore. The latest imported good to be hit with a possible new price hike is milk powder, an essential commodity for millions of households. With the country completely reliant on powdered milk, the proposed new hike of 600 rupees per 1 kilogram packet and a 250 rupee hike on a 400 gram packet looks to be a killer blow to consumers who have been steadily getting, as they say, less bang for their buck. With that, the proposed price hike was given approval this evening. Accordingly, the price of a 400-gram packet of milk powder has been increased by 250 rupees with immediate effect, the Milk Powder Importers Association confirmed. Thereby, the revised price of a packet of milk powder now stands at 790 rupees per 400-gram pack. The Milk Powder Importers Association explains that it is not possible to import milk powder required to meet local demand due to the obstacles they face in opening letters of credit.
Justice Minister Ali Sabri says that the situation in the country may have hit rock bottom, but the plus point is that with the government having decided to seek out IMF help, things can only get better from here on. He also expressed confidence that once IMF assistance and other expected inflows materialize, the rupee will stabilize at the 250 rupee level and give the country some breathing space soon.
The cabinet last week categorically decided we must seek the assistance of the IMF because none of the alternatives are working. And if those alternatives are not working, we must go back to the drawing board. So we are going to the IMF now. In terms of that, I'm sure IMF, when you go to the IMF, there will be a certain amount of confidence in the system. And we will probably have access to the international market for at least restructuring of our bond. I think it cannot go worse than this. It should go only upwards. That's the belief, hope I have. So with the dollars coming in, I also feel when realistically banks are offering a realistic amount, the remittance will also go up. So once the remittance go up, once the IMF support comes in, while the Indian credit line comes in, somewhere dollar will stabilize. Our hope and prayer is that it should stabilize somewhere 240 to 250. If that happens, I think we need to live with it because that's not the end of the world. I know. If you look back in 1997-98, countries in the ASEAN region, if you look at Thailand, if you look at Indonesia, if you look at Malaysia, if you look at South Korea, they all went massive crisis. But with prudent management, long-term support, with proper and sound advice, they managed to pull it through. And within a year or two, Malaysia came up, South Korea recovered within a year, and all the other countries also recovered. So this is an opportunity for a lot of new players who are willing to take risks and prudent management for country to be turned around. So let's hope this will be the catalyst for growth and a proper change in the way we govern our economy.
Minister of Energy Gamini Lokuge assured that measures will be taken to release the payment for diesel and jet fuel shipment currently anchored off the coast of the country for the past 6 days. Meanwhile, the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation announced that the Sapukaskanda oil refinery will be closed for 2 to 3 weeks starting tomorrow, as they expect some short-term tenders called for the month of April to manifest positive results in the coming month.
A vessel carrying 20,000 metric tons of diesel and 20,000 metric tons of jet fuel has remained anchored off the coast of the country for 6 days now. This is due to the lack of sufficient dollars in the country's foreign reserves to pay for them. With each passing day the ship remains anchored off the coast, the government will have to shoulder more than $18,000 as demurrage charges. However, Minister of Energy Gamini Lokuge has reassured that the issue will be resolved today.
Diesel ton 34,000 තියෙයි. ඒ නමට අපේ අස්තමේන්තු මුදල තිබුණේ මිලියන 32යි. ලෝක වෙළඳපොලේ තෙල් මිල වැඩි වෙච්ච හින්දා අපි මෙහෙම ඉල ගණන් හදන්නේ නැව කොළඹට ආපු දවසට සිංගප්පූරුවේ තියෙන ප්‍රයිස් එකට. ඒකට ගණන් හදුවාම අපිට මිලියන 56ක් යනවා ඒකට. දැන් අපිට 56 හොයාගැනීමේ ප්‍රශ්නයක් නෑ 56ට ඕන කරන රුපියල් අපි ලෑස්ති කරලා තියෙනවා. නෝත් ඒකට ඩොලර් වල ප්‍රශ්නයක් තියෙනවා. මං හිතන්නේ අද වෙනකොට ඒ ප්‍රශ්නේ විසඳෙයි කියලා.
Minister Lokuge added that the country is due to receive another consignment of diesel next Sunday as part of the Indian credit line. He added that the consignment is expected to be unloaded on the same day and once transported to the Ceylon Petroleum storage terminals in Kolonnavar to have them distributed across the country. In the meantime, the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation announced that it has decided to suspend operations at the Sapukaskanda oil refinery from tomorrow. This, they state, is due to the lack of adequate stocks of crude oil for refining activities.
අපි දින 160ක ණය පදනමක් යටතේ දීර්ඝකාලීන බොරතෙල් සැපයුම් ගිවිසුමකට අපි ඇතුළත් වෙලා තියෙනවා. ඒ ගිවිසුම හරහා අපිට බොරතෙල් ගැනීම ආරම්භ කරාට පස්සේ කිසිදු බාධාවකින් තොරව අපිට පිරිපහදු පවත්වාගෙන යන්න පුළුවන්. ඊට අමතරව අපි අප්‍රේල් මාසයේ සඳහා අවශ්‍ය බොරතෙල් ලබා ගැනීමට අවශ්‍ය කෙටිකාලීන ටෙන්ඩර් කීපයක් ඇඳවලා තියෙන්නේ. සති 2ක හෝ 3කට ආසන්න කාලයක් අපිට වසා තබන්න වෙයි. කෙසේ වෙතත් අපි අප්‍රේල් මාසය තුල කැඳවලා තියෙන ටෙන්ඩර් පත්වලට යහපත් ප්‍රතිඵලයක් ලැබුණොත් ඊට ප්‍රථමයෙන් අපිට නැවත ආරම්භ කිරීමට හැකියාව තියෙන බව තමයි අපිට විශ්වාසය.
In the meantime, the International Energy Agency listed out a 10-point plan yesterday in order to ease the strain the world would have to undergo in the face of the emerging energy crisis that followed Russia's invasion of Ukraine. As such, the energy agency states that emergency measures can quickly cut global oil demand by 2.7 million barrels a day, reducing the risk of a damaging supply crunch. Acknowledging this today, Minister of Energy endorsed the measures put forth by the international agency and requested the public to play their part in relation to the suggestions. Accordingly, among the list of suggestions from the agency are that highway speed limits should be limited by at least 10 kilometers an hour, encouraging work from home up to 3 days a week, and implementing a car-free Sunday in cities. In addition, they suggest that public transport fares should be made cheaper and call for incentivizing micro-mobility, walking and cycling.
Despite initial supply issues, Litro Gas Lanka Limited sought to ease worries of a gas shortage, announcing that it will be able to issue uninterrupted gas supplies to the market in future. Now, the company stated that it will be able to issue 100,000 gas cylinders to the market each day in the coming days and prevent any shortages.
Gas distribution at the Litrogas company's distribution terminal at Muthurajavela in Keravalapitiya, which continued until around 9 p.m. last night, resumed at 8 a.m. this morning. The company says that steps have been taken to issue 100,000 cylinders of gas to the market. The company says that steps have been taken to issue 100,000 cylinders of gas to the market daily. As such, the company believes that despite the initial issues it faced early this week in issuing cylinders to the market due to the lack of stocks, there will be no shortage in the coming days. This is because the company had been able to source the US dollars necessary to pay for gas shipments. However, Litrogas Limited announced that the company is facing terrible losses at the moment, and if it continues to do so, it might have to close down in the near future. Yesterday, advertising manager at Litrogas Lanka Limited, Piyal Koloma stated that this is due to the local market prices not matching up with the global market prices. As such, he went on to say that going by current global market prices, the company is incurring a net loss of 2,000 rupees from each cylinder of gas. With this being the case, despite our efforts to contact officials at the Consumer Affairs Authority to confirm whether a price hike will be on the cards in the coming days, it was to no avail. Senior officials at Litrogas Limited too refused to comment on the issue given its current predicament. In the meantime, long queues outside gas distribution centres were seen at various locations across the country today as well.
Big 3.
US Under-Secretary for Political Affairs Victoria Nuland is expected to travel to Bangladesh, India and Sri Lanka from the 19th to the 23rd of March with an interagency delegation, the US Department of State announced yesterday. Now Nuland is expected to underscore the US commitment to and cooperation with Indo-Pacific partners during her visit. Under-Secretary Nuland will hold partnership dialogue in Bangladesh and Sri Lanka and Foreign Office consultations in New Delhi. At each stop, Under-Secretary Nuland and the delegation will meet with civil society and business leaders to strengthen economic partnerships and deepen ties in the pursuit of peace, prosperity and security in the Indo-Pacific region. Other senior members of the delegation include Assistant Secretary for South and Central Asian Affairs Donald Liu and Deputy Under-Secretary of Defence for Policy Amanda Dory. Despite Sri Lanka's minimal case numbers, experts are warning that any ignorance of public health and safety guidelines could lead to a resurgence, especially in the run-up to the Sinhala and Tamil New Year celebrations next month. The World Health Organization, meanwhile, also cited rising cases across the world to offer a reminder that the pandemic is a long way from being over.
Sri Lanka's daily COVID cases are currently declining at the moment. Cases that once soared past 1,200 in the month of February due to the community transmission of the Omicron variant have now fallen below 300. As of yesterday, the country reported only 288 cases of the virus. However, health experts warn people not to get too comfortable just yet and stop adhering to the health guidelines. The Ministry of Health warns that if the pandemic is underestimated, a surge in infections could be inevitable, especially after the upcoming Sinhala and Tamil New Year festivities. As such, people are urged to get their vaccinations and continue to adhere to the health and safety guidelines. Similarly, the World Health Organization says that the end of the COVID-19 pandemic is a long way off, citing a rise in cases in its latest weekly data. The UN Health Agency has previously said that the acute phase of the pandemic could end this year, but it would depend on how quickly the world can meet its target to vaccinate 70% of the population in each country, among other factors. Spokesperson of the WHO, Margaret Harris, had this to say when she was quizzed by a journalist about the timing of the pandemic's end.
The pandemic is far from over. We are seeing actually an increase in cases this week, and sadly we're still seeing between 60,000 70,000 deaths. So we are definitely in the middle of the pandemic.
Now, a special operation carried out by the Navy in the seas of Mannar yesterday has led to the seizure of 175 kilograms of Kerala cannabis, the arrest of 2 suspects and the seizure of a boat used to transport the drugs. The Sri Lankan Navy has been conducting regular operations covering the coastal areas of the island with a view to thwarting a wide range of illegal activities. The operation was carried out by Sri Lankan Navy vessels SLNS Gajaba and SLNS Thammanna attached to the North Central Naval Command and involved the deployment of inshore patrol craft and special boat squadron fast boats. The street value of the seized stock of Kerala cannabis is believed to be over 52 million rupees. The two suspects arrested during the operation have been identified as residents of Udayangapuram in Vankalepan, aged 33 and 34. Taking you to business news, the Central Bank of Sri Lanka has decided to rescind its additional incentive scheme for expatriate worker remittances and exporter earning conversions with immediate effect. The Central Bank says that the decision has been taken as a result of the decision of the Central Bank to allow flexibility in the exchange rate. It explains that with the exchange rate having now reached a level surpassing the level of incentives that were implemented to stimulate expatriate workers' remittances and conversions of export earnings, the move was now deemed unnecessary. It added that the current exchange rate provides a higher return on the foreign exchange remittances of expatriate workers and a higher rupee value on the net earnings of exporters. In view of these recent developments, the government has decided not to implement the proposed scheme for additional incentives for remittances by expatriate workers and net earnings of exporters. With a notable upward adjustment in the exchange rate, central bank data showed that the conversion of foreign exchange earnings through formal channels by expatriate workers and exporters have already shown a marked interest or increase during March 2022. And that's all for tonight. Good night.